with the very first line of Mr. Selig's statement, and he said, Major League Baseball has made, quote unquote, tremendous progress in dealing with the issue of performance-enhancing substances. Mr. Selig, I gather that if you have made tremendous progress, there must have been a tremendous problem. Was Jose Canseco correct when he said that everybody knew what was going on? It sounds to me like you are in agreement. If you've made tremendous progress, there must have been a very serious problem. Was Canseco correct?
No, Jose Canseco, in my judgment, was not correct.
Then what tremendous progress did you make if there wasn't a tremendous problem?
Because in the year 2000...
Please speak closer to the microphone.
I'm sorry. In the year 2000 or 2001, we had no programs anywhere. Finally, I was unilaterally able to put one in the minor league program. We then negotiated in 2002. We began an educational program. We began other multifaceted...
No, but you're not answering my question. You're saying me that you made an effort, and I understand that. Yes. Whether it was good enough, people here dispute that. Was there a major problem? I'm gathering what you are telling us between the lines is that Major League Baseball had a very, very serious problem with steroids. It wasn't dealt with. That, in a sense, Canseco is correct, and that what you are now saying is that you've begun to make some progress.
We've made some progress in testing and everything else. Did we have a major problem? No, I don't believe we ever had what he says is a major problem. Let me say this to you. There is no concrete evidence of that. There is no testing evidence. There is no other kind of evidence. All we have is some anecdotal evidence, mainly articulated by him, and I think the other players dealt with that today. But we needed a testing program. There's no
One of the problems that we're having this whole day is trying to get a handle on how serious this problem was. You say nobody came to you, and yet there were articles in the newspaper talking about Canseco in particular. Just because nobody came to you doesn't mean to say there wasn't a problem. What people turning their backs?
I don't believe people were turning their backs. No, I certainly do not believe that. There were very few articles, but once the angio, I said before, and let me try to say it again. I can only tell you from my personal experience that when I read about the angio in July of 1998, I began to be very concerned, and I would talk to all of our people, and that's when all this began. But, so from my own thing, and I've been in this sport almost 40 years, sir, and I think I understand, and every general manager I talk to, all the doctors I've talked to, all the trainers I've talked to, no, there is no evidence that there was any widespread problem, and nobody has any data to support that.
Let me just quote. In 1995, the LA Times reported that anabolic steroids apparently have become the performance drugs of the 90s in Major League Baseball. 1995, the LA Times wrote that. You didn't know anything about that?
No, I don't. I've seen the article.
We got a problem here.
No?
If the LA Times says something, how come, are they wrong?
Well, you'd have to tell me what their basis in fact was, because it was not aware to any of us.
Congressman? I mean, just out of curiosity, I mean, if there's an article in a major newspaper, it doesn't say they're right. I'm not saying that they're right. Somebody should say, gee, we may have a problem. We should look at it, don't you think?
Congressman, if I could attempt to answer that question. As a follow-up to that 1995 article in the LA Times, there was also an article in the Detroit paper in the following year. The general manager quoted in the LA article is also quoted in the Detroit article. The general manager had gone from San Diego to Detroit. I only read this to you as a sort of a sense of what was going on at the time in terms of other factors that may have obscured what was going on. But here's the same general manager.
Is this Randy Smith?
That's correct. The pitching has thinned out. The hitters are stronger and the ballparks are smaller. They're always thinking about hitting. I remember once finding Melvin Nieves working out at a batting cage on Christmas Eve. Baseball could help slow the offensive onslaught by raising the mound to pre-1969 levels, Smith said. They're not going to make ballparks any bigger, and you can't change the physical strength of the hitters. But you could help even things out a little by raising the mound. Now, I'm not pointing this out in contrast to the 95 article, but only to say that those articles were infrequent. And there were other explanations for the kinds of offense that were being generated at the time. I'm not suggesting there wasn't a problem, but I think what it did was obscure the nature of the problem and the extent of the problem.
I don't have a lot of time, Mr. Olson. Let me just say this. I think what people up here, regardless of political persuasion, are getting the impression is you have turned your back on the problems in the past. And the second issue, Mr. Cummings raised it, is obviously we all know that in the real world, people with money are treated differently than low-income and moderate-income people. There are God knows how many thousands of people rotting in jails, and whether they should or should not is a whole other issue, but they are in jail. And what people, I think, in America want to know, that in this country, people who commit the same crimes are treated the same way. And I think that the impression that we are getting is that is not the case. Last point that I would make, the players themselves acknowledge what everybody here knows, that they are role models for millions of young people. And I would hope that the union and management would substantially raise the standards to tell people who are making millions and millions of dollars, who have opportunities that very few people have, that if they want to do that type of work and make that kind of money, they're going to have to not do drugs at all, period. Thank you.